everyone. I am Nancy Naji. I am Nancy Naji. I am Nancy Naji. Welcome to our segment Hello Money. Today we'll be talking about the payday. You have to be street smart. We all know this year. No grief for anybody is our 2024 tagline. Hello and welcome to the program. Good morning from the nation's capital, Abuja, where it is a wet morning. I am Nancy Naji, and thank you all for joining us again. Now, let's get started. So much to talk about. After the two-day policy meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the interest rate was raised as the monetary policy rate was increased from 26.25% to 26.75% in response to escalating inflation and soaring food prices. The CBN Governor Layemi Cardoso made this announcement following the 296th MPC meeting in Abuja. And of course, during the meeting, journalists inquired about the implications of rising inflation and the effects of the rate hike on the citizens. Just take a listen to what the Governor of the Central Bank said in response to the question on the effects of inflation on the average Nigerian.
As inflation is a challenge, we are also seeing some cooling down in inflation. We are seeing some cooling down in inflation. And we expect that as time goes along, that will continue and result in a positive trajectory eventually. Again, foreign exchange continues to be a challenge, but we are seeing positive results from the very, very hard work that the central bank has embarked upon over the recent months. Some very, very positive outcomes. I've spoken about the fact that our reserves are being boosted and that relative to last year, we're seeing greater velocity and more inflows coming in, which essentially, in my view, is a question of building back trust and restoring credibility. No matter what we do in terms of policies, if we don't have trust and we don't bring back credibility, all those policies will come to very little. So I'm very pleased that at least in terms of the trust deficit that we have had, we're slowly but surely beginning to rise out of it. I think, but I can't be sure, that perhaps some of the mixed reaction could have come from the misunderstanding between dormant and domiciliary. Okay, this particular directive is with respect to dormant accounts, not domiciliary accounts, dormant accounts. Now, I don't know about you, but over the years, in my experience, what I found personally is that if you leave accounts dormant in banks, sometimes more than when you don't leave them dormant in banks. In fact, most times, they are more susceptible to fraudsters copying your identity and trying to game the system to grab hold of your money. Okay, so that is a problem that I think most money banks face. And I'm sure if you've been on the receiving end, I have been, then you know that anything that can protect you in the process from these kinds of predators will be welcome. The policy and the directive is meant to ensure that all those monies come to the central bank for safekeeping. You don't lose your money. You don't lose your money. And it's at zero cost to the beneficiaries.
time for Africa to engage in serious conversation aimed at finding answers for its problems.
My brothers and sisters, I firmly believe this mutually beneficial friendship will benefit from opportunities created by the African Economic Congress platform. And this is the reason we need to deepen democracy in Africa and empower citizens and civil society organizations.
All right, welcome back to the program. My guest is joining me right now for us to unpack the decisions of the MPC. Of course, I'll be having two segments today, but the first segment is now. The Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria joins me now. She's Dr. Ladi Balakefi, MNI. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's get started, and I think I need to really get into it quickly. The first question will be, why are prices still sticky in Nigeria, despite the 8% rate hike that we've seen now since this MPC started meeting, I think in September of last year?
No,
so we've seen...
February.
Is it February this year?
February this year.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Whatever it is.
Yes.
What was I thinking in September? Okay. I think the governor came in September, if I'm not mistaken. In August.
October.
Yes. Okay, I'm just mixing it, but you understand what I mean.
Yes.
In terms of 8% rate hike since the MPC started meeting. That's actually what I wanted to say. So why are prices still sticky? Because the argument then, even at the beginning, the first two MPCs were that we need to go very aggressively to chase this. I remember at the last MPC too, Governor Cardoso did mention, okay, because of that aggressiveness, we've seen a tapering of inflation, month-on-month decrease. But this last inflation rate did not taper. In fact, it increased across board. So explain.
Okay, thank you for your question. So I'll first say that the reason why inflation is still sticky can largely be attributed to unexpected injections. Because as you said yourself, there was month-on-month inflation decelerated, if not for June, that it inched up. So the reason why it is sticky is because we have unanticipated injections that we didn't factor in. For example, the wage increase for minimum wage to 70,000, also federal government injections, and I'm sure you've heard about the supplementary budget of 6 trillion,
2 trillion.
and there are so many fiscal surprises that keep coming into the system. So, and in addition to an inheritance of backlog of ways and means, which we're trying to manage. So those are the reasons.
So is that what is still keeping prices sticky, in the sense that there's so much money supply?
Yes.
But the central bank has also been trying to mop up
yes.
money, yet prices are still sticky. Are there additional factors? Because yesterday, while I was at the MPC meeting, on X, of course, the breaking news, I was tweeting everything that was happening, and the questions people were asking was that high interest rates, why did the CBN decide, MPC now decide on higher interest rates because of the, adverse effects that we would see? I understand that the CBN, part of your role is also monetary tightening, especially in a high inflationary environment. But many Nigerians are not understanding that, coupled with that, even with the high interest rate and the monetary tightening, yet prices are still high. Cost of food is up. Everything has gone up. Cost of medicines up. Everything has gone up.
Yes.
More than you can. Bread now is going for like 2.5. I remember when I used to buy bread less than 1,000 naira. You know, there are some commodities and products that have escalated over 300%, some even 1,000% increase in this same economy.
Yes, yes. The committee were very mindful of the current situation. Before this decision were taken, there was discussions and brainstorming. The economy was analyzed extensively. And you must understand that monetary policy alone cannot handle these issues. The central bank or the committee will use the tools available to them. That's what they did, to the best of their ability. But there are other structural issues that affect inflation.
Are you saying that perhaps the fiscal side is more of the fiscal stuff which you guys don't have a control over?
Yes, precisely. Although now we're edging towards strengthening collaboration, and you know the permanent secretary is also a member of the MPC, and she even mentioned some things that they are also doing in order to moderate the current problems that we see with food inflation going up and prices going up generally. So let me just say that the CBN is committed to its primary mandate of price stability, which covers all the prices, exchange rate and food prices and so on. So, and we will use all the tools available to us. And we have been mopping up aggressively.
Are your tools still working?
Yes, they are, because
if they are working, we'll be seeing the outcome.
No. It's now, the prices are now plateauing.
Plateauing at 34%.
You just give us a slack. By next month to the following month, you will see the moderation will now be seen. But we have to be mindful of the fact that food is the most, it has the highest percentage in the basket. And inflation, price, monetary policy cannot handle food alone. No matter what we do, we will only assuage it to an extent. Farmers are not going to the farms because of insecurity. There are issues of seedlings. We have climatic conditions. The central bank can only do so far. So assuming that these fiscal injections, they have not taken effect yet, but once they come on, it's even going to be more. Sometimes it is even anticipation that this would happen. People take positions. So
it's, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head because I'm wondering how your explanation will be sounding to many Nigerians that are watching. And I know I asked the governor that question yesterday because for me, the generality of what everybody feels it, what we're feeling right now as a Nigerian is really inflation. And that was why I asked the governor that question yesterday in terms of the optics we are seeing, if it's really addressing the issue of inflation. That means we should have
moderation.
Yes, moderation in inflation, because even your target and the federal government's target, I think, is about 21%, at least according to the budget for this year. But we're already 7 months into the year. I don't know how it's going to be magic.
No, it's not going to be magic.
We're confident.
Yes, we're confident. Staff forecast shows that we will get to maybe 27% by end of the year, and also the IMF forecast is very much in line with our forecast, as well as Fitch rating agency. And we did a survey of simulations by other private investors and also international institutional agencies, and it's very close to what we're doing. Nancy, I must tell you that we would like the general public to understand that the central bank and members of the committee are committed to ensuring that inflation decelerates, but we shouldn't happen magic overnight. As I said, it's plateauing now, and we know it's going to moderate. Even our forecast showed that it should have moderated this month, if not for the surprises, you know. So NMPC is not producing as much, and don't forget that there is a correlation between inflation, food inflation, and exchange rate. So the central bank currently is trying to stabilize the foreign exchange market in order to reduce imported inflation. And at the same time, we're also trying to manage core inflation, so headline and core inflation. So it's a dilemma that we have found ourselves in, but the commitment by the MPC members and the management of the central bank to price stability is unshaken.
Is there a fear that it might get out of control? And why I'm asking that question is because of what we saw in June in terms of 8% rate hike so far, from I think 18.75% where the central bank governor met it at that time to now. So is there a risk that it will get higher than 34? I know you showed us optimism, you've given me optimism that by end of this year, God keeping us alive, you also be here, I will be here. And by December, I'll be saying if it has gotten to 27%, if it hasn't gotten, God help you, ma'am, because I'll call for you. And
God is already helping us.
You know, but what I mean is that is there a fear that it might actually escalate as a result of even more shocks? Because now the 6.2 trillion naira that NAS has actually also passed it for President Tinubu. Minimum wage adjustments will enter. Yesterday, minimum wage bill was passed. Well, I don't know how the states will come around with theirs. Labor will meet with states. That would also have an impact in inflation. So is there a risk that we may see inflation higher than 34% in the coming months because of the shocks?
Okay, so I don't have a crystal ball, but what I'm going to reiterate is that the MPC members and the management of the central bank are committed to price stability. They are committed on reining in inflation, and I'll even tell you the steps that they have even taken further. We are now collaborating with, we've strengthened our collaboration with the fiscal authorities, as I said earlier. And in addition to that, we want to see how we can strengthen development finance institutions, such as the BOI, especially those that we have equity shares. Yes. So we're trying to strengthen them, the Bank of Agriculture, Nexim, to refocus them to actually target their mandate. So if they do that, we're also going to institute forms for monitoring and evaluating their performance, and we're going to ensure that they do not give loans to people that shouldn't be getting the loans, that the loans should go to actually those that need them. And we've commenced discussions with the Bank of Industry for them to now start channeling more of their loans to SMEs. Because as you know, small and medium scale enterprises build an economy. If you give them the financing they need, it will strengthen your economy. So what we're doing now, we're holding discussions with these institutions. We're building their capacity and also ensuring through our oversight functions that they adhere to targets that they should be adhering to in the first instance. And in addition, if I may add, since we have now, well, we've always known the correlation between exchange rate and inflation. I'm sure you too, you know the efforts that the management of the bank has been undergoing to ensure that we get capital inflows to stabilize the foreign exchange market. And you can see in the last few months, we've had over 8 billion inflows into the country. And that is largely due to all the policies, the restructuring that we have done, the reforms in that space, trying to attract diaspora funds by licensing more IMTOs, and also trying to strengthen the Bureau de Change as well as other segments of the market to ensure that we harmonize our markets, which we have achieved, and in order to also reduce the volatility in the market, and which I think we have achieved.
Okay, just as we move to the end of this segment, explain to Nigerians that are watching now and that do not understand why the Central Bank of Nigeria raised interest rates yesterday.
Okay.
To 26.75%,
Yes.
50 basis point. I think that's the lowest since this MPC came in.
Yes.
The lowest rate
It could have
hike.
even been higher.
It could have been higher. Okay. When some people were saying yesterday, why not just hold it first and see how things go? So I want you to explain why you decided on higher interest rates again, because people don't understand that the economy is struggling. Nigerians are reeling from hurting inflation. Businesses cannot borrow because this will translate to higher borrowing costs. They will be getting letters from their banks now that interest rates have increased because of the anchor rates have increased. Those that want to get loans may not actually get again because even the banks are trying to. Then on one hand, there's the windfall the windfall tax on FX gains. So there's so much. So I don't know how you would do it, but God help you explain, because
Okay,
explain
just
why
a
you
quick
need
one.
to increase
Yes,
it.
before I explain, the windfall tax has nothing to do with the Central Bank of
Yes, I
Nigeria.
know. I'm just
that
saying.
was
I'm
the
just
federal
putting.
government.
Yes, I'm just
yes.
putting.
Okay,
Setting a contest.
But it is good actually for the country, the windfall tax, although the policy didn't emanate from the Central
I know it
Bank.
didn't emanate from
Okay,
you.
so having said that, the rate hike will attract foreign capital inflows. That's one. So the more inflows we have, the more dollar there will be.
But
so
you
let me
still have
come
a
down to
negative
granular.
You still have negative real interest rates.
Yes, it will stimulate savings, and savings is good. So, and also we will reduce liquidity in the system, because you know in economics the theory that inflation will keep skyrocketing if you have too much money in the system chasing too few goods. Now we are underproducing, especially food, and that's largely due to the insecurity. There's banditry. Farmers cannot go to the farm because of kidnapping. There's insurgency in some areas. We have middlemen who go and buy off agricultural products from farmers and export to other countries, because the volatility in the exchange rate and the depreciation of the naira has made the naira cheaper. So they can export food to our neighboring safer countries, the francophone countries, and sell our food as produce at a cheaper rate. So when they do that, it's cheaper for them. They gain more. They gain more profit if they sell. So while consumption is now limited in the country. So these are the things. So once we get this our exchange rate right and inflation moderates, there will be equilibrium. So I want the average Nigerian citizen to understand that the central bank's policy is actually targeted at addressing inflation. When we address inflation, once inflation is addressed, food prices will decelerate. Prices also, I can see that there will be difficulty in them understanding the relationship between exchange rate and food prices.
Exactly.
But
In fact, a comment came in from one of our viewers, and it's saying, how does this put food on the table? In fact, he said, good morning, I've listened to you and the CBN governor yesterday. How does all these policies put food on the table of the man on the streets? That's a question coming in now.
Yes, so you see, for example, we do not produce enough as much as we consume. So we import food, and there's imported inflation. So, and now the federal government, the fiscal authorities have a plan to fix the supply gap by bringing in more food into the country. They're going to import maize and corn, and this is all the effort of the collaboration between the monetary and fiscal authorities. So there will be food on the table. In the next 3 months, there's, I think it's 150 days, there's going to be that supply side from the fiscal authorities. And we hope that we know, because we've seen what hiking interest rates from March, for the 3 past MPCs, we've seen what it has done to the economy in terms of reducing the quantum of liquidity in the system. If we had not taken these decisions, the counterfactual, there would have been a different story by now. Inflation would have been much, much higher than what it is today, trust me.
Okay. You're sounding like the central bank governor. I think I remember one of those meetings too, which he mentioned is, well, if we didn't go this aggressive,
Yes.
it would have been much more higher.
Yes.
But I think we'll leave it at that for now. So I will allow you, I'll give you a slack. I'll allow you go. And Perhaps let's see what happens in September, because the next meeting also is in September, towards September ending. We have 2 more meetings of this year.
We have the meeting in September and the meeting in November. So at least the citizens can now see that we are even going into seeing how we can strengthen DFIs. As I said earlier, we are reforming the exchange rate sector, and we are even supplying. Last week, we supplied about $122 million into the market, just to moderate the market. We have limited, the tools that we have, that's what we can use. We cannot use tools that we don't have. We can only collaborate. Now that we are having talks on not only collaborating with Ministry of Finance, the fiscal sector includes Ministry of Trade, National Planning, you know, so, and then we're also going to communicate further on what we do. Like what I'm doing now, we're going to go granular, down to the grassroots, so that they will understand the relationship between what we're doing and
how it affects
and how it affects them.
Because that has
and they will
actually
also
been
understand that it is not totally dependent on us. We are not the military. We cannot address insecurity. There's so much that monetary policy can do. But to the best of our ability, the tools we have, we are deploying them effectively. And I believe that they are efficiently yielding results.
Okay. I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Dr. Ladi Balakefi, for joining me today. I'll see you soon, so have a good day.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, I've been speaking with Dr. Ladi Balakefi, Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria. That department is very integral in putting together what happens at the MPC in terms of, you know, all the communique and all of that. I know that months of work go into what they do for those 2 days, and that is why she's actually here to explain some of those behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't see. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue this discussion also from another angle. My guest, Femi Oladeyin, Senior Partner at Argentile Capital Management Limited, joins me after the break. Do stay.
To again inform Nigerians that he listens to them, especially the young people that are trying to protest. Mr. President is listening to them. He takes what they say seriously and is working assiduously to ensure that this country is good, not just for today, but also for the future. The issue of the planned protest, Mr. President does not see any need for that. He's asked them to shelve that plan. He's asked them to await government's response to all their pleas. He has listened to them, like I said, and a lot is happening. Only today, the National Assembly has expeditiously passed the new national minimum wage. You can see how the president is working. It was transmitted only yesterday. Today it has been passed. A lot of other interventions that the president has also put in place are also going to be looked at expeditiously in the interest of Nigeria. So there's no need for strike. The young people out there should listen to the president and allow the president more time to see to the realization of all the goodies he has for them.
The bill, inter alia, seeks to amend the National Minimum Wage Act of 2019 to increase the national minimum wage and reduce the time for periodic review of the national minimum wage from 5 years to 3 years, and for related matters.
Those in support that this bill on minimum wage be read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate. The national minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000, and to reduce the time for periodic review of the national minimum wage from 5 years to 3 years, and for related matters 2024. Third reading taken and passed.
right, welcome back. Femi Oladeyin, Senior Partner at Gentile Capital Management, joins me now. Hello, Femi. Good to see you always. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nancy. Absolute pleasure as usual.
Yes, welcome. I don't know if you listened to Dr. Ladi Balakefi, the Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department of the CBN. Did you listen?
Yes.
What,
Yes, I did.
What do you think of the explanations and even the explanations by the governor yesterday? Like I mentioned, I asked him that question on inflation because that's what's biting everyone now. What do you think with those explanations, and why is it difficult for us to understand that explanation? In fact, I got a message. Someone, of course, my team sent it to me while on here. In fact, there was a message saying they are blowing grammar on inflation. You know, some actually asked, this will not put food on the table. Some are asking, why has the government not refined fuel domestically? That is not the role of the central bank to refine fuel anyway. But many Nigerians seem not to even understand what the CBN is doing, or perhaps even if they understand, why their decisions are not taking effect as urgently as possible.
Hey, Nancy, thank you for having me on the show. Look, I listened to the CBN governor yesterday, and I also listened to Haji on the call this morning. And what is obviously clear right now is that the economy has been overheating for quite some time, and the effects of that overheating of the economy are becoming very apparent to the average Nigerian. And as you alluded to during your conversation earlier, 800 basis points of increase in 6 months, effectively since February. And we're still seeing inflation riding higher. I mean, crossed 34%. So as we know, these are historical highs, whichever way you look at it. And the implication of that is the average Nigerian is feeling that in their pockets. They're feeling it on their tables when they want to eat, and they're feeling it everywhere they're going. And it's obvious that the central bank is focused on using its normal tools. Unfortunately, it's limited in what it's able to do. I think I had an interview on Monday and had called that they were going to do a 50 basis point increase, simply because even on the interest rate front, they're getting to the peak of their ability to increase rates, increasingly. And I expect that the next MPC is probably going to be the last one we're going to see an increase in rates. What is obvious now is that this is no longer a monetary policy problem. This is a fiscal policy problem. And until the fiscal side of the government actually realize that their contributions to this problem is even worse, then honestly, we're just kidding ourselves. They just passed a 6 trillion naira supplementary budget. I mean, what are we doing here? Are we joking? Seriously.
You know, it's like she mentioned, doctor mentioned earlier, that's the acting director, that they can only act within what's within their role and their purview. They can't provide security. Our view, one of our viewers that asked the question, she's blowing grammar. Let the government begin to refine fuel. CBN cannot. It's not CBN's duty to refine fuel. You know, so how much laxity really, how lax has the fiscal policy been in terms of addressing the problem? Because we're seeing food inflation. Central Bank of Nigeria cannot produce food, for example. But their actions also can, do have an impact on growth, do have an impact on borrowing costs, do have an impact on even equities markets, do have an impact on, markets generally, do have an impact on even Nigerians, So how do we really balance all of this out?
Look, I mean, Nancy, it's a conundrum we've been talking about for the past 6 months, right? We all knew that when the central bank governor came in, they were inheriting probably the worst monetary policy environment ever in the history of the country. And that in itself was a major problem for them. And in addition to that, from the fiscal side, the government unfortunately had to spend aggressively to justify the elections that they had just won. So you had what I would probably describe as caught between the devil and the blue sea. And unfortunately, the tools that government has, the tools that are available to government in this kind of instances are limited, especially even to the central bank. The central bank can only move when it comes to monetary policy, and there are very specific tools that it can use. On the other tools that are available to it, that's the CRR, the liquidity ratios and all of that, it's maxed out. There's nothing they can do. Any attempt to do anything else, you start to see banks go into distress. So obviously, the only option that they have is interest rates. And what we've been explaining since the beginning of this year is that the drivers for inflation in Nigeria today are multifold. Yes, there is the fact that there's a liquidity overhang that came from the Buhari government. But in addition to that, there are structural deficiencies in the market that are driving these inflation numbers. And until those structural deficiencies are fixed, you are always going to be in the same cycle of high inflation without any form of deceleration. You know, the CBN official said earlier on that she expects inflation to be at 27% in December. I would say exactly what I said yesterday on another TV channel, and I would eat my shirt out if that happens.
I'm telling you, which I
because,
also told,
again,
I will do a party here if it gets to 27%.
I would eat my shirts out if that happens. Because the reality is that the drivers of that inflation number are fundamental issues that cannot be fixed in a short while. And unfortunately, even the moves that are being made on the fiscal side don't lend themselves to both medium-term and long-term remediation of the fiscal issues. And that is where the problem is. Look, I'm an economist, and I would have been excited if I felt that some of the policies that have been implemented now, 12 months down the line, 18 months down the line, will fix those fundamental problems. But there is none that I can point to, or there are not a lot that we can point to that are targeted at those structural issues. And until we fix those structural issues, we're going to have the same problems. Imported inflation is a big issue. Growth has stagnated, badly. You have the exchange rate still continuing to struggle. So you would wonder how the central bank is patting itself on the back when the policies, or sorry, the indices that we use to measure the effectiveness of its policies are all showing worse numbers than they were in February.
Exactly. That was what I was struggling with also during the interview with her, but she sounded so optimistic. So I was like, okay, Nancy, let me also hold my fire, because mine is to ask, penetrating questions. Perhaps they're seeing things that we are not seeing on the outside, and the kind of conversations that go on amongst them that are, economic handlers. But you also said something which she also mentioned, which is also in public domain. The federal government is going all out for the next 150 days in terms of tariffs, on a few food commodities. How do you think that will impact food inflation? That's one. If food, especially the component of food, the component of imported inflation for food, how will it impact that? Then secondly, Governor Cardoso also mentioned yesterday, and let me read from the communique, let me quote him. He said the MPC noted the narrowing spread between the various foreign exchange segments of the market, indicating price discovery and improved market efficiency, thus reducing opportunities for arbitrage and speculation. What would you say about the narrowing FX spread? Have we really achieved price discovery, and how do you think that can actually also sink into the imported inflation which we have, and as well as even the core inflation side, which is all other items except food? Femi, I know you understand my question. I'm not an economist, but for those of you, I'm trying to probe all the issues
I know
and
you're
see.
probing deeper.
Yes.
Yeah. And so let's start with your first question, which is on core inflation and how the way they're seeing core inflation and the way the market is seeing core inflation and what the differences are here. The reality here is this: the Nigerian economy has been structured in a way where inefficiencies form a significant portion of our costs. And those inefficiencies feed into baseline inflation on a regular basis. Think about it. You go to the farms. The transport costs between the farms and on the underlying market means that there's a lot of inefficiencies priced into that. Also, the fact that we actually don't have a good storage environment, again, that feeds into that. Now, to talk then about the government's tariff interventions. You know, look, I've had a lot of interesting conversations with colleagues in the finance space around this. I felt that, look, in the short term, imported inflation was a problem. And the fact that our food production numbers have been constrained dramatically meant that we needed to find short-term solutions. You know, if people cannot feed, then you can't control them. The government is going to lose its control over the people if they cannot eat. And so you have to feed them. So I have no problems whatsoever with the targeted 150 days, 180 days importation of food so that we can feed Nigerians and hopefully right this problem. However, the second part of your question is actually fundamental to how we come out of this problem. The issues we're dealing with today have been with us since when we started to talk about the header farmer crisis, you know, and
But
we
Femi,
politicized
pardon me, we all know that
God.
this has been on even since President Jonathan. And all the governments that have come to tell us that they are coming to fix this issue. Yet when they come in, they are giving us the same, we know it didn't start with us, and they will say it for 8 years and it goes. President Tinubu
Yes,
too,
so
they are also saying
mean,
the same thing. So for me, it's broken record. Because that is actually why you are seeking power to get all those things sorted.
Unfortunately, the politician is the most optimistic person you are going to meet in the world. And most time that optimism is not based on any logical premise. Look, I said this during the campaigns last year, that whoever inherited the government from Buhari was in trouble. It was a poison chalice because the economic mismanagement that we had over 8 years, where the economy was being driven by the monetary policy side of the economy, and the fiscal guys simply were just acting like there was no control. Somebody had to inherit that. And unfortunately, you know, well, luckily for them, the current government has inherited that conundrum. However, what concerns me more are what are the long or medium-term policies that we are putting in place now that ensures that in another 4 years or in another 8 years, we're not having the same excuses. And I think that's where we should be bringing the conversation back at the end of the day to say that, look, okay, we know that these problems are here. Imported inflation is a problem. We have refineries that haven't worked in 20 years and have deprived us of investment, has drained us of forex. What are you doing to fix the problem? And what are the timelines you're having there? We have agriculture that's been struggling, where the central bank has put billions of naira into anchor borrower programs that have failed spectacularly. What are the long-term solutions to that? How do you ensure that you continue to support the agri sector, fix the security challenges that are in agri, and ultimately grow that? Now, Nancy, I want to say something that you would probably understand better. Look, when we started to have problems in the Niger Delta on oil production, remember that a lot of time analysts kept saying, you need to fix this problem, you need to fix this problem. President Obasanjo came, papered over the tracks, did amnesty and all of that. The implication of those years of not taking long-term decisions are what we're dealing with today. Nigeria's oil production is 1.2 million barrels. And, you know, by the time you take out the portion of that belongs to the IOCs and the JV partners, you're down to probably 400,000 barrels of production. And again, we're saying take long-term solutions, take long-term processes to what's looking at where should we be in the next 5 years. No one is talking about that. We're talking about next December. We're talking about December inflation numbers. Look, December is done. From an economic point of view, the difference between now and December is it doesn't make any difference. What I want to hear from government is, look, these are the decisions we're taking today that in 5 years' time puts the Nigerian economy on a pedestal where it grows consistently, inflation is tamed, and all of that. When we start to think about that and not think about the next election cycle, then we can start to fix those problems. So let me just bring all of this home so that we're at least we're landing on somewhere. There are immediate issues that the central bank is dealing with, and that is the exchange rate and interest rates. Those are issues that have to be resolved. And unfortunately, the limits that the central bank have are almost breached. So there is a problem there. If we continue to see high inflation into December, then we have to all raise our hands up and say, there is a problem that we cannot solve, because if you drive interest rates to 30%, businesses are going to start collapsing. So you are going to sacrifice growth on the long term. Second issue is the exchange rate. We know that the biggest problem we've had has not been whether the Naira is efficiently priced or not. No, that's not the problem. The big problem is that we don't have inflows of FX. You know, the traditional export markets that we have been destroyed. So we do not have a sustainable inflow of FX. We need to start talking about long-term solutions to FX in the short term. And once we do that, you would then realize that over time, food inflation will come down. We have significant FX reserves to be able to ensure that the Naira is fairly priced. Yes, the arbitrage in the Naira has more or less disappeared, just because if you look at the trading the trading margins, they are significantly lower than 3-4%. And when you have those sort of margins, you would say that the currency is properly priced. But bottom line still is, inflation is very sticky. The exchange rate is significantly higher than it was last year. And we are not sure yet whether we've actually reached the bottom.
Okay, Femi, we just have less than 4 minutes, and let's see how much we can pile into the 4 minutes. I want us to take a look at the shrinking consumer demand, which I'm not seeing that argument come up now. And let me situate it around what I mean. Let me explain what I mean. If you go to a lot of places, even in fact, if you enter the market now, many people will say, oh, they know they sell again like before, because people now cannot afford. Purchasing power has been eroded. You go even to eateries, for example, you know, popular eateries, or you will just see one person or two people there. You'll be there for like 2-3 hours, no one has come in. So this shrinking consumer demand. Then number two, around the question around stagflation, because what we are actually also dealing with is stagflation, low growth, high unemployment, high inflation, high interest rate, and all of that. So things are not really looking good for us now. You've recommended a lot of stuff while you were talking. If the CBN has limited capacity to address this, where do we now look for hope, or now renewed hope? Hope is not a currency. Hope will not buy stuff for us yes.
So Nancy, two things that you've talked about that are very important. One is consumer demand. Now, understand that the Nigerian economy, when we look at our GDP numbers, historically, one of the biggest components of our GDP has been government spending and consumer demand. So those are the two biggest components that we've had. We can see clearly that the erosion of the wealth of the average Nigerian has meant that significant deceleration in demand has occurred. And it's clear. Look, think about it. This time last year, my salary is currently worth 50% what it was last year, just from a dollar parity basis. Then by the time you price in inflation, it's worth 20% of what it was last year. That in itself already tells you that capacity to spend is significantly constrained if my income has not grown, right? And that is what you're finding on the average Nigerian. So Nigerians are having to choose between healthcare and feeding themselves. And you know, and when choices get to that level, you know that people are only going to focus on what they can eat. And of course, who pays for that? It's growth at the end of the day. And eventually, so imagine what a business owner is dealing with. You're dealing with a high interest rate environment, which means your cost of capital is now in the 30s, 40s, right? Because if cost of debt is already 35, then cost of equity is probably close to 50.
Will be
so
higher.
your weighted average cost of capital is like 40-45%.
Okay.
I mean, what business can you potentially do that gives you a 45% return? That's difficult.
Okay.
Second issue.
Okay. I just want to add this in because we have less than a minute. A question from Doze. Doze is asking that if they want to shore foreign exchange buffer by supplying foreign exchange to dampen inflation and back up exchange rate, why is the government, as we hear, planning to go full speed on importation of food to dampen skyrocketing local food prices? Are those policies not counterproductive to one another? So if you can add
I've answered that question. I tried to answer that question earlier. The reality is that if people are hungry, economics flies through the roof. You throw out economics and you feed them. That's the answer to that easily. you feed people and then you can worry about economics later. However, what we're saying now is that actually, so what I wanted to say, Nancy, and as my final point, is that the central bank is limited in what it can do. The solution to our growth right now is a fiscal problem. And the fiscal policy drivers or the fiscal bodies are the ones who need to step in and deliver growth and find ways to taper inflation. But honestly, the central bank can't do anything anymore. Their options are significantly limited.
Okay, I think we should leave it at that too. So it seems like what the central bank is doing now is just ritual, just normal ritual. Every two months, 6 times in a year, just give us the decisions and let's talk about it like this, while the fiscal side, comes up with whatever they're doing. Anyway, Femi, I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for coming on the program today. All right, I've been speaking with Femi Oladenye, who is the senior partner at Argentile Capital Management, and we've been looking at the July MPC's decisions. Thank you all for joining us again today. Be the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Hello everyone, I am Nancy Naji, a financial journalist, the anchor of Moneyline with Nancy on AIT. Today I'll be talking about smart savings tips for students.
Great Nigerian students. Great. Very good.
So attention students, hold your ears so that you can say goodbye to financial struggles. Number 1, calculate your income. Know how much money is coming in so that you can set a realistic budget. Number 2, track your spending. Monitor monthly expenses to identify areas for potential savings. Number 3, set financial goals for yourself. Establish short and long-term goals to guide your budgeting efforts. Number 4, compare your income and expenses. Ensure that your income covers your essential needs, adjusting spending accordingly. Number 5, buy second-hand items if you can. And if I know you can, so save money by purchasing used items, especially books that are expensive items for you while in school. Number 6, cook your meals. Cut costs by limiting dining out. Cooking at home is not only economical, but promotes self-care. I'll see you all in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy, and join us on our program on AIT too. Hello everyone, I am Nancy Naji, financial journalist. I'll be talking about common money mistakes to avoid. Number 1, ignoring financial challenges. Tough times, of course, bring discouragement, but don't let it lead you to overlooking financial issues. Make 2024 the year for financial organization. Address and understand your financial concerns. Seek advice from professionals to gain insight and clarity. Number 2, avoid over concentration in investments. Don't put your investments in one basket. Placing all your financial resources in a single investment or sector poses risk of financial losses. Experts advise diversifying your portfolio across various assets like stocks, bonds, real estate, and more for better risk management. Number 3, neglecting an emergency fund. The lessons we learned in 2020 from the COVID-19 pandemic emphasize the necessity of an emergency fund. It serves as a crucial safety net for unexpected events like job loss or unforeseen medical expenses. Even starting with small contributions can lay the foundation for this essential financial cushion. Number 4, open communication about family finances. Discussing money matters within the family, especially between spouses, is very vital. Understanding each other's approach to money and responses to financial situations foster clarity. So if your husband is the prudent type that knows about investment, he can handle issues about money. If your wife is the same, she can handle issues about money. But joint discussions enable better family financial decisions, including involving grown children, establishing a clear understanding of the family's financial standing. I'll see you all again in the next video. I hope you've learned common money mistakes to avoid in 2024. I'll see you all again. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Hello everyone, I am Nancy Naji, the anchor of Moneyline with Nancy on AIT. Today I will be talking about January federal government savings bonds. The Debt Management Office has introduced 2 new savings bonds for subscription at 1,000 Naira per unit. These are the initial offers for 2024, with one being a 2-year bond set to mature on January 17, 2026 at an interest rate of 11.033% per annum. The other is a 3-year bond maturing on January 17, 2027 with an interest rate of 12.033% per annum. Both bonds are open for subscription. They've been opened from Monday, January 8th, and they will last till Friday, January 12th, with a settlement on January 17th and coupon payment on April 17th, July 17th, October 17th, and January 17th. Investors can subscribe starting from a minimum of 5,000 naira and in multiples of 1,000 naira thereafter, with a maximum subscription of 50 million naira. Interest is paid quarterly and the principal amount is repaid in full upon maturity. These savings bonds, like other federal government securities, are supported by the full faith and credit of the federal government and secured against Nigeria's general assets. What are you waiting for? As little as 5,000 naira, you can invest. Check out your licensed bank or your stockbroker. I'll see you in the next video.